Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. Thanks for joining me today. I've got an important video today. I think that everybody, whether you're a new player or a veteran player, can get some value out of this video. Today's video is about how to choose your next 6-star champion. I think this decision is probably the most stressful one in Raid, and it can be the kind of thing that actually gives you a lot of anxiety and puts a lot of stress into the game. Obviously, we can't 6-star every single champion we pull, even though that would be great because we have limited resources. And this is true whether you're a free-to-play player, you're a low spender, even if you're a whale. You always want to get the most value out of the resources that you do have. And so having some kind of process that allows you to make good decisions about which champion to 6-star next is critical. And no process is going to be perfect. You're going to have to learn over time, but I'm going to give you a guide today that's going to give you a step-by-step process that I've been using. It took me about 10 months of playing to get this process kind of refined to where it is now, but I've been using it for the last year and a half or so, and it absolutely makes it a lot easier for me to make the decision on who to 6-star and then to feel good about that decision and make sure that I'm getting that value out of those 6-star champions that I level up. Let's go ahead and jump into my champion pool. I'm just going to show you, this is why this process can be stressful. Here I'm looking at a roster of, dozens of champions, maybe 100 champions plus that are potential 6-star champions. I've got all of these legendaries down here who need, to be considered. I've got rares and epics up here who need to be considered. You can see I have a bunch of level 50s. I have a whole lot of level 50s, some of whom may be really good at 50 and I don't need to take to 60. Maybe they're just waiting for their opportunity to be taken to 60. So the question becomes, what do I need right now? What do I need in the long term? What champions are going to continue to give me value? So let's get into the process right away. This is my raid guide for how to choose your next 6-star champion. Now, it starts by making a list of priorities. Well, you have to prioritize your needs because at different parts of the game, you're going to need different things. So this list is sort of a starter list, but this list may look very different at different times in your account's progression. So this would be, I would say, sort of a generic priority list. The first most important aspect of the game is absolutely Demon Lord Clan Boss. Early in the game, this should be your #1 priority. Once you get into the mid game, it may become your #2 or #3 priority. And once you, get past maybe the 8 or 10 month mark, you probably are totally fine on Demon Lord Clan Boss, and that's going to drop down the list. After that, Classic Arena should absolutely be your #2 priority, especially early in the game. You want to try to get to at least Gold 4, if not Gold 5. That's going to take several months for most players. You need to get a high quality arena nuker, and you're going to need the setup support champions to get that nuker to be as effective as possible. You might even need your Arbiter before you feel fully comfortable with Gold 5. And so that's a priority, is being able to get through the Arbiter missions, which is why the next priority here is dungeons, because not only dungeons are a place to get great gear, which you need to increase the strength of your teams, but you will need to complete these dungeons up to level 20 in order to get your Arbiter. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. Now, campaign I've put at #4, but campaign is only going to be at #4 for a little while. Probably early on, it may be even more important than like Clan Boss or Arena. You want to try to get through to Brutal Campaign so you have a place to farm XP and silver. But at some point, you're going to, start prioritizing these other areas, the Clan Boss, the Classic Arena, the dungeons. And then finally, at some point, you're going to choose to make a dedicated campaign farmer. Okay, so at the beginning, it's going to be your starter champion. It's your Kale or your Elhain or whichever champion you've chosen. But at some point, you're going to say, okay, I want to get a champion that is just my campaign farmer so that I can, first of all, speed that up because, your starter champions, you might be able to get down to around 15 seconds, maybe 13 or 14 seconds, but you're probably not going to be able to get faster than that with your starter champions. And you probably want to get down to like a sub 10-second campaign farmer. So you're going to get a Bellower or a Fellhound, or, maybe there's a legendary out there that you want for the campaign, but you're going to get a campaign farmer who can do it in 6, 7, 8 seconds. And that's going to free up your starter champion to focus on other areas of the game. Campaign will be important once. You'll lock in your campaign farmer, your sub 10-second campaign farmer, and then you probably won't switch that campaign farmer ever again. Okay. Hydra Clan boss is good to prioritize because the reward is Mithrala, who's an amazing legendary champion that you can get for free. And the faster you can get her, the more that you value you can get out of her in other areas. One of the things about this priority list is that your raid account is kind of like a snowball rolling downhill, right? It starts off small and it's hard to collect resources, but as it rolls, it gets bigger and bigger, and then the resources come faster and faster. So by prioritizing properly and 6-starring the right champions in the right order, you can kind of accelerate that downhill momentum. And so a decision that you make 3 months in may bear a lot of fruit, not just because of the changes that happen immediately, but because of the acceleration it gives to the account. And Hydra Clan boss is one of those places. Doom Tower is next. You could swap Doom Tower and Hydra Clan boss. It's hard to say. Doom Tower is also a place where you can get a lot of resources, including shards. And you also collect the special resources from the boss that you can use in the Forge to create those special armor sets that can be very useful and also progressing your account. You will be stuck on particular bosses at particular times. Dark Fae, Baumel, Griffin, Scarab, these are all valuable bosses to farm based on the materials that they give you and the armor sets that you can build from them. And they're also kind of tricky bosses. So you're going to need to build a different team for Dark Fae, and then a different team for Scarab, and a different team for Baumel. So it may be worth it, depending on where you are in your account progression, to specifically say, level up a champion just to solve your Baumel problem. 3v3 Arena is next. 3v3 Arena is something that you want to be farming because of the rewards you can get into the shop there, and there are some nice rewards in the shop. The reason it is so low here is because as you build your classic Arena champions, you are naturally going to shift some of those champions into your 3v3 Arena teams. And it will take a while until you actually need to start building specifically for 3v3 Arena. Now, one of the things that you'll notice here is I haven't listed Live Arena, and that's because Classic Arena and 3v3 Arena will cover your Live Arena teams for a very long time. I would say you're going to be a year to a year and a half in before you need to specifically worry about Live Arena. Live Arena, in a lot of cases, is just about being willing to do the grind. Get in there with your arena teams, with your 3v3 arena teams, and, learn the combos that are working for you, and just keep pushing because you are gaining medals as long as you're playing. Faction Crypts is at the bottom here. Faction Crypts are one of those things where as you level 6-star champions in other areas for Clan Boss, for Campaign, for Hydra Boss, for Baumel, for, Fire Knight, whatever, those 6-star champions will naturally form the cores of your Faction Crypts teams. So it's going to be rare that you need to specifically build a champion for Faction Crypts. However, at some point you may. At some point you're going to get to, 56 stars or 58 stars, 61 stars, and you're going to say, in order to finish off this Faction Crypt, I need to seriously think about either building a champion that I wouldn't use in other areas. Maybe I take that champion to 5 stars for Faction Crypts, or I might just want to prioritize a good champion in that faction because I really need to progress that Faction Crypt. Farming Faction Crypts is important. You want the resources there because perception sets are incredibly powerful, and the only way you can forge perception sets is from the rewards in Faction Crypts. However, in most cases, you're going to be progressing with your Faction Crypts just sort of as a natural extension of progressing your account. The reason that you also want to have sort of a long priority list is because when we get into assessing our champions, we're going to be looking at champions that can give us value in multiple places. So we want to know where we want to progress so that we can properly assess the champions that can help us progress in multiple areas. This is where the decision-making process actually starts with the champions, because the only way to properly assess the champions that you have is to know where you need the most help. Okay, so only now after we've done that priority list, are we actually looking at the champions? So when we assess the candidates for the next 6-star, there are several things that we want to do. We're going to be researching the potential candidates. Now, where do you research the candidates? Well, you can research them online. You can go and watch content creator videos and, get opinions of people who are more experienced in the game. You can go to the common websites, whether you go to hellhades.com, ayumilove.com, or Aftershock United. You can go to those places and get tier lists so you can look at those champions, get descriptions of where they are good. You can also obviously read into the champion skills and kind of educate yourself on where you think that these champions would be valuable. So those are all things that you need to do. You need to research those champions thoroughly. But while you're researching, you want to also be asking yourself these questions. Okay. And there are several questions that I always ask when I'm considering my next 6-star. The first one is, how much will this champion improve performance? Now, there are two considerations here. One is, am I replacing another champion? So for instance, if I'm creating a campaign farmer, I already have a campaign farmer, so I'm replacing that campaign farmer. So in this case, I'm worried about value over replacement. If I'm going from a 20-second campaign farmer to a 7-second campaign farmer, that's my value increase, right? Now, there is also one other consideration in this particular instance, which you want to consider, which is once you take that champion who was your old champion out of that role, can they be respecialized for another role to also add value? So by regearing or redoing masteries, can that old champion be revitalized? Or are they just becoming a vault guardian? So if I'm literally moving one champion into a role and then that old champion into the vaults, that's a complete loss of that other champion's value. That now that 6-star champion is useless to me. However, sometimes you're actually 6-starring a champion that has no current replacement. There's no champion doing that role. So this is the first champion to take on this role. In that case, all you have to figure out is how valuable is that champion's performance in terms of progressing along your priority list. So if you are, for instance, maybe getting a healer that's going to help you in the Demon Lord clan boss, okay, how many more millions of points can I get out of my clan boss team with this healer? Can I extend 5 turns, 10 turns, 15 turns? Is this support actually going to make me unkillable and get me to 50 turns? Am I going to go from doing brutal to ultra nightmare? Or is this just going to get me from brutal to a 1-key brutal instead of a 2-key brutal? So that's how you're going to judge the improvement in performance. The second question is, how many other places will I get value from this champion? And that's the versatility question. If you are a free-to-play player, this is especially important. I think it's important for everybody. But here's the deal. You need your champions, especially your first 10 or 15 6-stars, to be usable in most areas or many areas. There are a few exceptions. Getting an arena nuker who's just an amazing arena nuker, that's all you need to use that champion for, and they don't really need to be usable elsewhere. You might get some value for them out of, say, faction crypts. But in general, an arena nuker is a specialist, and you're going to build them for the arena, and that build isn't going to be effective in a lot of other places. And you don't want to be swapping gear, all the time, because that's expensive. It costs a lot of silver to do that. So in general, when you build an arena nuker, that is all that they do. But if they can get you from gold 1 to gold 5, then that is a ton of value, and you don't need to get a lot of versatility out of that champion. However, for most champions, especially for free-to-play players, you want to think about this priority list again. Can I get value in 2, 3, 4, 5 different areas of the game? And for some champions, the answer is going to be yes. I'll give you an example. At 180 days in, you get Syl of the Drakes. Syl of the Drakes is an amazing champion that you can use in a lot of areas. She is great in all of the dungeons. She's great in the Hydra clan boss. She's great in Doom Tower. She's good for the waves in Doom Tower. She's also good against several bosses in Doom Tower. You will put her in spot 3v3 arena and live arena. She's amazing in faction crypts. You can also use her in Iron Twins. You can also use her in Sand Devil's Necropolis. You can absolutely use her in all of the potion keeps. So she has tons of versatility. She may not be the best champion in any one of those places, but she gives you a lot of versatility for a lot of different places. And so this is the difference between a specialist, which is, say, your arena nuker, and a general versatility champion like Scylla of the Drakes, who is usable in 80% of the content. So if you're early on, you may want to consider, how many specialists do I need? How many versatility champs do I need? And remember that those specialists should do the job really, really well, not only now, but for a long time, which brings us to question number 3. How long will this champion continue to be useful? How long will this champion continue to be useful? Yes. Okay. So one of the things about building a 6-star champion is, if that 6-star champion is only going to be useful for a little while, then they have to really create a significant progression for you in order to be worth the 6 stars. And basically what that means is, let's say you are looking for a clan boss damage dealer. This is tricky because you start with your starter champion as your clan boss damage dealer. And then at some point along the line, you're probably going to want to upgrade from that champion, or you're going to want to supplement that champion with a second clan boss damage dealer. And you might not get one of the top 5 or 10 clan boss damage dealers, but you might get a decent one. You might get a pretty good one. For instance, you might get Frozen Banshee. Frozen Banshee is a rare. She's she's probably the best rare clan boss damage dealer. She's a very good clan boss damage dealer and may take you from, let's say, hard or brutal up to nightmare. That is pretty good progression. However, she's not going to be your ultra nightmare clan boss damage dealer, probably. Or if she starts you there, you're definitely going to look to replace her with somebody better. So she is an intermediate champion. She gets you a progression improvement from your starter champion, but she doesn't take you all the way to end game. Now, in some cases, that's going to be useful. You build her anyway, simply for the progress that she gives you in the meantime, and then you use that progress to gather more resources, which will hopefully yield a better champion down the line. But you built her with the understanding that she will be replaced someday. Now, this is a very good example of how to do this correctly. Frozen Banshee is a great champion, but she's a rare. So the investment in her is relatively minimal. This is not a legendary champion that requires legendary tomes. So you're not using 10 or 12 or 13 legendary tomes on this intermediate champion. You've chosen a rare who's relatively cheap. So the only thing that you're really investing is the food that you need to turn her from 5 stars into 6 stars. A bad choice here would be a legendary who is only going to be replaced in 2 or 3 months. And then you've used all those legendary tomes for minimal progression. Okay. So when you're looking at how long this champion will continue to be useful, there are some champions that you're going to use right through endgame. And you're going to say, if I build this champion, I will never not use this champion. Mithrala, who I was talking about earlier, is a good example of that. Once you build Mithrala, you will continue to find uses for her all over the game. Like Scylla the Drakes, she can be used in 80% of content, and she can do some things that no other champions can do. And she's such an amazing champion that even endgame players use her all the time. So once you build her, you will never replace her. However, sometimes you will replace that champion, and then you're not getting the longevity out of it. So that is something to consider. Question number 4, do I have the books or gear for this champion? And this is just about implementation. Sometimes you get a great champion and you want to build that champion right away, and you know that that champion has versatility or longevity or both, but you literally don't have the gear to make them do what they need to do. Or you don't have the books to book them out, and unbooked, they're not nearly as valuable as they are booked. Now, this may result in another consideration, which is entirely up to you on how you want to approach it. You may say, I might want to 6-star this champion anyway, and then as I get the books and the gear, I will just increase the value of this champion over time. And because they're already 6-starred, I know it'll be a focus and I won't have to worry about it. And as this champion gets stronger, I'll get more value out of them. Or you can go the other way and say, I am going to wait to 6-star this champion until I have the books and gear available to actually make them fully worthwhile. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and 6-star maybe an epic or a rare that I do have the books and gear for. And that way I'm going to get more value immediately, and that's going to progress my account faster. Both choices are viable, both are reasonable, and it's entirely up to you how you want to progress. But you still have to answer the question. You still have to ask the question. You have to say, do I have the books or gear for this champion to be used the way I want them to use them? And if not, what do I choose? Question number 5 is, what other champions do I have coming soon? This is actually sometimes an incredibly important question, and other times it's not an important question at all. So sometimes you know that there's a fusion coming that's going to be incredibly powerful, but you have to wait 2.5 weeks to complete that fusion. But you want to have all of those books and gear available. You want to have all of the 5-star food ready to turn this champion into a 6-star immediately and get value out of them immediately. And so what you might do is delay using those resources on another champion, even if that other champion would also be a good choice, because you know that this champion that's coming down the line is incredibly powerful. In my account, I got Sill of the Drakes and the Arbiter within about 10 days of each other. So I got Sill of the Drakes at 180 days. I got Arbiter at about 190 or 195 days. And I knew that that was going to happen. And so what I decided to do was I decided to book out Sill of the Drakes, knowing that the Arbiter was coming and that I wouldn't get to book her out for a while. And the reason I did that is because I thought that the Arbiter would be more valuable at level 50 than Sill of the Drakes would be at level 50. So I ran Arbiter in my arena team at level 50 for about a month or two before I was able to fully book her out and take her to 6 stars. Okay, so that is a consideration, especially if you're free to play and you have limited resources such as books. Okay. And then the final question here is, what would I lose or gain by waiting? And this is the other end of the opportunity cost. So sometimes you have a decent choice for 6-star, but not a great choice for 6-star. And so you might want to ask yourself, what do I lose by waiting and what do I gain by waiting? So the thing that you lose is whatever progress that champion is going to give you between now and whenever you 6-star your next champion. And what you would gain by waiting is maybe a more efficient use of resources. By waiting and not 6-starring a champion right now, as soon as you get a better 6-star, a really good 6-star, you'll have those resources waiting for that 6-star, and you can level them up and book them out right away. I typically, personally, always want to keep about 2 champions worth of books in reserve. So I will 6-star a champion until I get down to about 20 legendary tomes. When I get down to 20 legendary tomes, I don't 6-star any more legendary champions. If I have enough resources to just 6-star a whole bunch of champions, but I don't have the books, like I have all the chickens and the food and stuff, then I'll start looking at rare and epic champions that I could 6-star instead of legendary champions. Unless I have a really, really top tier legendary. If I have a top 20 legendary in the game, then I'm going to book them out, even if it takes all of my books. Early on, you're not going to get that. It may take you 2 or 3 months to book out a single legendary champion. So don't keep those books in the vault. Don't save those. Spend them. Get the value out of them early on. But once you hit about the year mark, you can probably slow that process down a little bit. You're going to have most of your priorities covered. You're going to have your clan boss set. You're going to have your Hydra boss team grinding away. You're going to have your Gold 5 arena team. So in that case, once you get to that point and most of your top priorities are handled, then you can start keeping some books in reserve in case you happen to just pull an amazing champion during a shard event or you get a great fusion. So now that we've assessed the candidates, we probably have a top few candidates, and now we have to make the decision. Now, this is actually where the stress comes in, right? Everything that we've done up until this point is preparation, and it's great, and it's really good in order to put us into a position to make a good call. But now we have to make the call, and now the anxiety comes in, and now we're stressing out because we don't want to make the wrong call. So here are some words to live by. These are things that I've learned over the 2 years of playing Raid Shadow Legends that are just going to maybe help you psychologically. They're not necessarily going to help you make a better decision, but they're going to help you make the decision more easily and maybe stress out about it a little less. And the first thing is, don't be afraid to choose. Don't be afraid of the choice. you have the opportunity to make a new 6-star champion. That's awesome. That is one of the best things in the game. It's one of the most exciting things in the game. So don't be afraid to make that choice and get some progress. No matter what happens, if you've asked the questions that we've already talked about in this video, you're going to get some value out of this 6-star champion, regardless of which one you choose. So don't be afraid to choose. Go ahead, make your choice. Okay. The second thing is actually, you don't have to force it. Don't feel that because you have the resources, you need to make a 6-star champion. If no choice feels right, you can always wait. There's going to be another champion down the line. In 2 weeks' time maximum, in 2 weeks' time maximum, you're going to have another shard event. Whether it's a 2 times ancient shard, 2 times sacred, 2 times void, every 2 weeks you have one of those events. Every month you have a fusion champion and an opportunity to go after that. So don't force a choice if no choice feels good to you. Just go ahead and wait. Keep those resources, and maybe you'll pull 2 or 3 good champions on the next shard event, and then you'll have the resources waiting for them. So don't be afraid to choose, but also don't be afraid to say, none of these choices work for me, and I'm going to wait. The third thing is listen to your gut. Now, we're talking about, in this video, we're talking about an entire process of how to make a good decision. But ultimately, the game is about satisfaction. So if there's something inside you that is telling you to 6-star a champion or to not 6-star a particular champion, regardless of the assessment that you've done, go ahead and listen to your gut, because it's going to be more satisfying. Maybe you get a champion that you've just been waiting 6 months to pull, and you love this champion for some reason. You love the lore behind it, or you love the way they look, or you watched a video 6 months ago from a content creator and you're like, oh my gosh, I want that champion. And they've been the top of your, desired champion list for the entire time. And now you finally pulled them. Go ahead and make that 6-star. Go ahead and satisfy your desire to have cool champions, to play the game the way you want to play it. Don't hesitate to make that choice, because it will be satisfying, even if it's not the optimal choice. That's okay. It's really okay. Listen to your gut and enjoy yourself. Number 4, don't waste time on regrets. Now, this is actually something that I learned, because I 6-starred several champions that I regretted. And it's interesting because those regrets helped me refine the process that we're talking about right now. And since about 10 months into the game, I have not regretted a single 6-star champion that I've chosen. However, I don't think all of that's because I've always made the perfect choice. I think some of it is just because I've learned that the regrets aren't useful. And sometimes the regrets aren't even accurate. And I'll give you an example. At one point, probably about 10 months into the game, maybe 8 months into the game, I decided that I really wanted to replace my campaign farmer. Elle Hain was my campaign farmer. And I decided I wanted to replace her, but I didn't have one of the top tier campaign farmers. So what I actually chose to do is to take an Athel that I had sitting in the vault and build her up to 6 stars and make her my campaign farmer. And as a result, my Elle Hain, who was clearing the campaign in like 20 seconds, got replaced by Athel, who was then clearing campaign in like 15 seconds. So I got a very minimal progression. I was able to then move Elle Hain and make her more of an arena nuker, because she wasn't my clan boss damage dealer at that point anyway. So I got a little bit of value out of that. But I almost instantly regretted it, because the improvement in the campaign was so minimal, and it felt like I didn't get a whole lot of value out of Elle Hain either. And then honestly, in a couple of months, I replaced both of them. I got Elle Hain out of the arena, and I got I got Bellower, so I got a new campaign farmer, and so I replaced Athel. And so now I had these 2 starter champions who were fully built, and the only thing I was using them for was faction crypts. But a few months later, what happened was I got into Doom Tower hard mode. And in the Doom Tower hard mode, there are several secret rooms where you need teams of rare champions. In some cases, it's rare attack champions. All of the starters fit that bill. And in some cases, it might be rare champions of a particular affinity, I think. Either way, having those champions already built now makes them very valuable for that secret room. And secret rooms are how you get other great champions. You collect the fragments through the secret rooms, and you can get a bunch of legendaries and some really good epics through Doom Tower. So all of a sudden, these champions who sat in my vault for a few months started being valuable again. And so I regretted those 6 stars. I regretted certain decisions I made. But now I'm finding that I get consistent value out of those champions anyway. They are good in faction crypts still. They're good in secret rooms. And even later on, I needed a weaken on an A1. I needed an A1 weaken for a particular Doom Tower boss. And I couldn't use Arbiter, and I couldn't use Helicath, who were my 2 A1 weakeners. But I still had that 6-star Athel sitting in the vault. I re-geared her with some perception gear, and all of a sudden she became my A1 weakened champion for that Doom Tower boss. And so now I'm getting value out of her in 3 different places. So this is why it's not worth wasting time on regrets, because chances are every 60 that you ever create will be valuable for a period of time, and then their value may actually come back around later. But the other reason you don't want to waste time on regrets is because regrets don't change the past, right? We can't actually un-6-star somebody. We can't get those resources back and invest them in somebody else. So if you have to vault a 6-star that gave you value for a little while and now doesn't, that's just part of the game. Learn from the process, and hopefully you can get step number 5 down, which is you learn from the choices that you've made, good or bad, to improve your process. Now, when I say your process, I mean that you do not have to use this process exactly this way. This is a good starting point, but you're going to evolve this process according to the way that you play the game and according to the way that you enjoy 6-starring champions. Like, you may 6-star champions in a completely different way than I do, but this will give you a starting point on how to get there and hopefully alleviate some of that stress. But the goal is to continue to refine that process until you get to a point like where I am at now, where I just feel very confident in choosing my next 6-star, and I'm happy with those choices. Finally, and the last thing, and this is really the most important thing, is if you've gone through this process, you now have a new 6-star champion. Enjoy that champion. Get them, like, start using them right away. Put fights on manual to, like, enjoy actually using their skills. Or, hey, put them on auto, but then watch it and just marvel at the value that you've gotten out of your champion. Whether that's a new clan boss high, or whether that's, speed running through a dungeon that used to take you 3 minutes and now it takes you 45 seconds. Or maybe you complete that faction crypt that you have been struggling with for the last 3 months. Whatever it is that this 6-star champion gives you, enjoy that. Don't worry about the regrets. Don't worry about the opportunity cost. This game is supposed to be fun. That's why we play it. I know we all take gaming seriously. You wouldn't be here watching this video if gaming weren't a serious endeavor for you. And when I say serious, I mean, it's a passion, right? It still is fun, and it still should be fun. You have a new 6-star champion, you fully booked out, enjoy the ascended stars, enjoy, all the resources that go into it. Give you something, and remember that and enjoy it as it happens. Okay, so that is the entirety of my process. And, whether you decide to use this process or not, I hope this is at least giving you some food for thought on how to choose your next 6-star. Remember, there's no perfect process, and it's always a learning endeavor. You're always going to be learning and refining and getting better at it. But if you have any questions about how I decide to make a 6-star, or if you would like help in, walking through this process one time with me, definitely reach out. I'm happy to do that. I think that would be a cool interaction, helping, players make their 6-star choices. We can jump into my Discord, talk about your roster, and figure out what your next 6-star should be. Okay, so I've been Colred. Thanks for hanging out. That is all for me today, but I will see you in another video soon.